Welcome to a very different episode of the Jack Davies podcast. Something I'm going to try a little bit different today is a monologue episode. And this is basically my attempt at having a bit of a challenge in my already short broadcasting project. And yeah, I'm looking forward to taking a little break from the interview style, but they'll be back on the next episode, not to worry. But just mixing it up with a different challenge. And so for this episode, I thought we would look at the 5 things I've learned this year. Now that can sound a little bit cheesy, but I think it's very important that we review our years each year and that we plan our years each year. So I thought about how this year's gone for me, and it has been a roller coaster of a year, starting with some very hard to deal with family matters, some hard physical and personal challenges throughout the year, and then really challenging myself to grow, like with the launching of this podcast, as well as, a spattering of some very privileged but very well enjoyed events such as concerts and holidays and Grand Prix along the way. So I'll take you through basically the major lessons that I've picked up this year just through living my life and doing this podcast. So the wins, the improvements, and the things that I've really learned. Okay, the first thing I learned is plan your year, your months, your weeks, and your days. Now, I do this every year, have done for a long time. For the first time this year, I did it with my wife, Vicky. And last December, we both set out to plan our years. We looked at our intentions for the year, the things that were going to be non-negotiable, the things we wanted to read, things we wanted to learn, our word for the year, that would sum up our year. Mine was freedom. And, I wanted to have the freedom to work the way I wanted to, the freedom to pursue passion projects such as this, and other things such as places we wanted to visit and things that we wanted to contribute through this year. So that's how we sort of set the annual goals. And then we reviewed these back a little while ago, and it's phenomenal to see just how many of Vicky's she had achieved. And you have to be aware of your own personal characteristics. My wife's very disciplined, and she just pursues those goals endlessly until they're achieved. I am prone to procrastination, distraction, rabbit holes, so I need a lot of contact time with my goals. And by planning my months, my weeks, and my days, I can regularly come back to what are the small actions that I can take on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to move me towards them. So you have to consider your steps towards your goals and your intentions throughout. So work out what your non-negotiables are. If your goal or one of your intentions is to run a faster 5K, for example, or to launch your business, if your non-negotiables need to be around running interval training or finding clients or finding the software that you're going to use to promote your business and things like that. Reserve time in your calendar. So if your big goal is to run an Ironman, you better at the start of that year blank out the week of that Ironman so that you don't accidentally book a work event, accept a party invitation, or book a holiday in the week before it. That is broken out in your calendar. That is your non-negotiable time. Plan your days and your weeks to ensure you're working on your goals. Now, I live a very privileged life where I have spare time, and so every Sunday, my wife and I, we get together, we grab a coffee somewhere, and we plan our week to come. Part of that is listing out the things we need to do just in our lives, with our jobs, running the house, and we discuss things that are important to each other. Part of that is I need time to train on this day, and this day because it's pursuing my goals. Or, hey, I'm filming a podcast on this day. I need to make use of the studio, or I need to be out, I need to be editing. So make sure you're allocating time to pursue your goals and your intentions throughout it. But most importantly, don't forget to have fun. Yeah, don't overschedule your time on a daily basis until you're completely blown apart and worn out. So don't forget to have a bit of fun along the way. And with the planning, I have like daily, monthly, and annual resources that I can link down in the show notes for anyone that wants to use them, or drop me a message and I can send them through to you so that you too can look at the way I do it and adapt it for your own good. The second thing I learned is do hard stuff, challenge yourself. Someone I worked with once said that a smooth sea does not a skilled sailor make, and that really hit home. Hard stuff challenges our comfort zones, and there's no real joy in the comfort zone. It's nice to spend a little bit of time there, but it is ingrained within us as human beings to want to grow and develop ourselves. Now, hard stuff can be anything from physical events like a Tough Mudder, an Ironman, playing football, to starting a business or committing to a project. For me, this year, I committed to several. So I committed to a High Rocks. I committed to a High Rocks in February. And that High Rocks, for those that don't know, is 8 1-kilometre runs split up with 8 fitness stations in between. And I entered it in Glasgow, and it well and truly kicked my ass. I was a broken man come the end. But once I got through the grief period of accepting that the race didn't go the way I hoped, I learned an awful lot. And I was able to redeploy that in the subsequent High Rockses, which got progressively better and better. And the good news is they're all still equally hard, but you can see how far you've grown. So I went from a terrible first High Rocks to a really good third High Rocks, where our pace was near the hour mark, and now we've got a goal to go underneath it. So now I'm sort of lining up some goals for next year based around that. The podcast has been a huge one for me. I'm not an outgoing person. I even said in my first podcast, I'm not a natural conversationalist. That's why I'm here challenging myself today to run a monologue episode. A single person, no interaction, and frankly, it's very hard. And trying to keep the flow of the conversation going without someone talking back is proven to be a huge challenge for me. One of the other things that you need to bear in mind when you're planning your hard stuff is Jesse Itzler calls it the Kevin's rule. His mate Kevin said, every 8 weeks through the year, plan a challenge and make a memory. This is something that you wouldn't normally do on that weekend, and each year you'll have 6 to 7 new memories, new challenges, or new growth opportunities. And that really impacted me. And if I look back, you can see throughout the year that we run some High Rocks, we launched the podcast, we went on specific dates where we made memories, or if we have spent time with friends doing something slightly different to normal, we're making these memories. And that was quite an impactful rule for challenging yourself. And if you combine that with pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, you could find yourself in the 5K race that you didn't think you could sign up for. You could find yourself starting the business, the side hustle that you didn't think you could bring yourself to do. Or you could find yourself publishing your first podcast and being absolutely terrified to let it out to the world for fear of what people may think. Then you start to realize that from every one of those actions, you become a better, bigger and stronger person. So, challenge is growth, and it tests your boundaries. As Coach Fod said in his interview with me, he said, sometimes we have to get the job done despite the pain. And the way you feel after always makes you forget that pain. It's the reward that if it didn't hurt, it wouldn't be so rewarding. So remember to challenge yourself. It's how we grow. So set yourself some interesting challenges and layer them into your year planning. Use the Kevin's rule to add the 8 events throughout the year and make them your challenges. Lesson 3, look after your mind and body. Like, it's the only one you've got. So coming from the construction industry, I'm confronted on a regular basis with the mental degradation of the industrial workforce that I'm seeing in this current climate. And it is a hard thing to see, and it's a hard thing to accept. So I can only speak to my own experience, and those are the people I've interviewed. But we have to manage this ourselves. And That's not to say you have to do things on your own. It's to say it starts with us. And if we ask for help from there, then that's fantastic. The way I manage this for me, my physical health and my mental health, is exercise is a big one. Yeah, I have struggled with my weight for years. So now I use the pre-planned challenges to keep me accountable, and I use the motivation that I need to keep my body in its fighting state, because a healthy body is how we optimize our life. Use exercise to manage that stress and to build the body that is going to carry me through all these experiences in life. We can use other things like journaling, and other methods, similar methods like that, for getting things out of your head. Coach Ford, again, he discussed it on his interview where he said he didn't believe he would be journaling. But it was from that journaling that he was able to have the breakthrough to reframe in his mind that 2 broken legs wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. It showed it was hard. It made it more rewarding. So these tools are there to help us. And when you confront the thing that you've been scared of, it's usually not as bad as you was expecting. So remember to talk to people, do the journaling of your own work, and exercise always makes things better. My friend always says that no one ever felt worse after a workout. And if we get outside into nature, move every day, eat a well-balanced diet, we are creating a healthy and happy body from which we can embrace life's challenges. We had Billy on as a guest, and he talked about his own struggles accepting his addiction. And he talked about the help that he got through the NHS and through counselling. It was through talking with these people and having shared experiences and having his friends come around him when he felt so alone that really helped him push through and come through out the other side into sobriety. So, remember that talking to people is an important way forward. It's very, very, very rare that when you ask for help, someone will decline to give it. And, from my own perspective this year, my dad had a health scare at the start of the year, and that opened my eyes instantly to remembering that everything is finite. And despite my dad being a relatively healthy man, he still had a health scare. So it reminded me to keep my body in touch, my mind in touch, and ensuring that I stack the odds against illness. And I want that for everyone in my family as well. Lesson number 4, assemble your resources. Like, nobody is expected to know it all, and everyone needs to be expecting to fail at some point. We are experts in nothing. I am certainly no expert, and I don't profess to try and become the world's coach from doing this. I'm just saying what worked for me this year and what I've learned from guests that I've spoken to and other people that I follow, people that have inspired me. Appoint your experts and mentors. Look into books and podcasts and newsletters. There are people out there that can advise you. They are way more qualified to do so than most of us are ourselves, and it's usually out there for free. This year, I worked through a series of books. My favourite books of the year was The Last Ride by Bob Iger, where he's the CEO of Disney, and he talks about essentially all the troubles he faced, and most of his ways of overcoming them was a people-based solution. And it helps remind people like me, who tend to go to a lot more logical explanations, that people are hard and difficult characters. We're all individual. And he found solutions based on appealing to each individual person that he was doing business with or trying to lead. The other book I thoroughly enjoyed this year was called The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Now, it's by no means like a conspiracy theory book, but it makes you think. And what it does importantly for people is it opens your eyes to what could be going on. And it talks about the collusion of government and big business and how world events can be shaped for financial gain of these governments or businesses. What it taught me this year was to challenge everything. And I think that's quite an important thing to consider going forward so that you don't end up going down the wrong route. You can sign up for newsletters. People like Tim Ferriss and Andrew Huberman, they put newsletters out each week where they're offering their advice, their experience, their people that they've interviewed and the viewpoints that they've got back. You are not expected to know these things. You're not expected to know everything. So why not allow the people that have been doing the hard work to summarise it for you? Get yourselves into other resources. So you can borrow the resources that I'm offering for your journaling, for your planning, for daily planning, for the podcast that I want to listen to. I'm a huge fan of Rich Roll, and I think he rarely misses on a podcast. It's a great place to start. Get yourself into groups, like the power of community is huge. These are your resources. So that group could be anything from a park run to a local club that's run out of the local village hall for whatever your interest is. And the final one is do embrace a little bit of technology as well. So things like apps. One of my favourite apps is the breathing app. It's free to download and has like one user interface. And all it does is give you timing for your breathing. And if you ever need to stop and recenter, you can use it. It can be done visually or audio, so you could be on the tube with your headphones in, listening to it, or on the tube with no sound and just using the visual. And that is a great resource to have at your fingertips to deploy when you need it. My sort of fifth and final lesson I took from the year is to stop and calm down and give yourself some space. Why do people have their best ideas when they're in the shower? The eureka moment. Because that's the time they've given their brain a chance to switch off, and it moves everything out the way and gets to where it was meant to be going. Like I said, that was how Fod got his breakthrough when he was journaling. He had finally stopped fighting the fact that his legs were broken, accepted it, and that was when he had his breakthrough moment that this was good. Give yourself the time and space to be creative. Creativity needs space. And when we're creative, we do our best work. And when we're doing our best work, we're happy. And that's how we recharge and we're able to go back to doing all our other work, our regular work, our chores, our jobs. Make time for passion work, whether that's coaching, whether that's playing football, whether that's writing, whether that's composing music, performing. If you are reinvigorated, you can go about the rest of your life in a happy and fulfilled manner. I took time out earlier this year and I set out with the intention of doing nothing. And before I knew it, I was writing. And by the end of that week, I had written a lot. And the conclusion of it was I was going to start a podcast. And it took a little while to get there, but here I am in my creative outlet and I'm having fun. I'm hoping I'm being of service, and the only thing that I want from this, the one thing I want from this is if one person has learned one thing, then this whole project has been a success. In summary, those are the 5 things I've learned the most this year. And if I was to break it down even further, I'd say life is for living. Life is by design. So set yourself up to have the life that you want. I have to push myself outside of my comfort zone because I will naturally fall back to the couch, eating junk food, doing nothing, and waste large parts of my life, which I have done before. Never-ending improvement is the goal, and growth is fun, and fun is critical. Above all, love is critical, and healthy lives are the basis for living good lives. So look after your body and your mind because they're the only ones you get. I hope you find this useful. We will be back with regular interview-style podcasts in the future. I will occasionally kick these monologue-style ones around. I'd quite like to get some conversation-style podcasts going as well, where we discuss more current affairs or different thoughts on topics rather than just back and forth interview. I am not trying to be anyone's coach. I have learned a lot of lessons this year, and I've had a lot of fun finding some really creative work through this podcast. And I wanted to share just a little snippet of that with anyone. If anyone wants to discuss it further, my DMs are always open. Let me know what you think, and please continue to support the show, and we'll be back next week. Welcome to a very different episode of the Jack Davies podcast. Something I'm going to try a little bit different today is a monologue episode. And this is basically my attempt at having a bit of a challenge in my already short broadcasting project. And yeah, I'm looking forward